In the second part of the tool that Chen has is family assessment. So one of the questions in that section is who are the members of the family, including the extended family, and who makes the decisions in the family. So first we want to identify the family unit. Is it a small nuclear family, or is it a multi-generational and extended family? Mariko, you were talking about Japanese families.
Living in Japan, families tend to be including a lot of extended family members, especially if you go away from Tokyo to the countrysides, you have like 3 generations living together. However, the families that I meet in Vancouver, often they're new immigrants, it's just the parents and the child. And so they don't have access to any extended family for additional support, for childcare, none of that. And often the mothers say to me, it's really hard because if I was in Japan, I would have my mom that can help me out. But here I am in Canada, I'm completely on my own. And so that's a very big challenge for the mom, and it's a big burden sometimes on the family because they're used to having some extended family supports, but because they're new immigrants in Vancouver, they don't have access to that.
Mm-hmm. On the other hand, I've also noticed some of the families I support who have immigrated here, if they do have their parents with them, they've sponsored their parents to come here as well, they tend to all live together in the same house. It's not like they have grandparents but around to help out, but they are, lives 10 minutes away and just comes by once in a while. On the other hand, they could be very, very involved with every single routine. So then we have to, okay. So when looking at who's going to be involved in the PBS plan, we want to look at what's the role of each family member. Who do we need to involve when we're doing the assessment process, the planning, the implementation? I have a family I just started working with where we're working on a couple of routines, one of them being the drop-off at preschool. There's a lot of separation anxiety. And at first we thought it was just mom, and then realized that actually the grandparents are doing a lot of the drop-offs as well. So we're going to have to involve them in that process. The other routine that we're going to be working on is mealtime and expanding that child's food preferences. And we learned that the aunt is the only one that can get the child to eat currently. So we're going to have to involve her in the process. And then once you determine roles, you also want to look at who makes the decisions in the families. Some families have really clear roles and responsibilities. Maybe one parent supports the family more financially, the other one is more responsible for the home and domestic functions. Maybe one parent is more the person who represents the family in public. But other families, the roles are a little bit more mixed and not so clear. Maybe everybody plays a role in all of those different areas.
I have an example for, I worked with, it's a Japanese family as well, and we were working on a PBS plan. I was primarily working with the mother, and I kind of assumed, because we did all of our meetings together, it was just mom and I. We had all these discussions, we did the functional assessment, and when the implementation came, I got an email from dad saying this isn't really kind of gonna, my wife disclosed to me this. Can we kind of approach it in a different way? And that happened on 1 or 2 occasions, and I quickly realized I may be talking and interacting with the mother, but the father was the one that was making the decisions in that one family. And I realized Dad probably wanted to be involved, but he couldn't because all of our meetings around that 2 o'clock time, because we're working on after school routine, that 4 to 6, the witching hour when the mom trying to get dinner ready, that was the time that we were working on that routine, and Dad was at work at that time. So even though he wanted to be involved, he couldn't because he was at work. And so I realized, I've got to involve Dad. I have to involve Dad in all of my interactions with Mom. So I made sure I had really good notes from our meetings, and I was CCing Dad in all of our email conversation, making sure he was getting those notes too, so he can review them, and then he can give me feedback at that point. So I didn't realize that until that happened, right? So.
Mm-hmm. And I think Parbs also shared with us that in some of the South Asian families that she supported, she realized that the grandparents, and I think it was the grandmother in particular, that was the decision maker. So she had to make sure that she was involving them too. Another question that we want to ask ourselves during the family assessment is, to whom does the family turn to for support, assistance, and information? So we want to take a look at what the family's natural support network is. Some families have a lot of extended family to help out. Some might not, or some might rely really heavily on immediate family support that they might not actually seek help from professionals. So we do have to keep that in mind. And sometimes if the family doesn't have a lot of a very big support network, we actually might want to help them develop a support network. So especially new immigrant families who might not have a lot of resources, we might want to connect them with other families. With some families, if there's a stigma with a disability, we find that that can actually impact the level of support they have, because families might not ask their friends and their family for support with, say, childcare and other things like that, because they haven't told their family that their child has a diagnosis. And so that can be really stressful for them. That might mean that they don't ask for help. That might mean that they don't have anyone to talk to about their stressors, and it results in them becoming more isolated. So sometimes we can help connect them with other families, or maybe there's lots of different parent support groups that are specific to different cultural backgrounds. So that could be a way for them to meet some other parents that are going through similar situations. There's a group called UMID, I hope I'm not pronouncing that wrong, that Parbs has shared with us. They're focused on outreach within the South Asian community. So they do monthly parent support groups. They have translated written materials in Punjabi. They do videotaped presentations in Punjabi. They've partnered with a lot of different organizations, like the Surrey School District, SFU, Autism Speaks. So we do have some materials here if anyone's interested afterwards. But she'd shared a really encouraging story that was shared with from a teacher. So I guess there's a family who didn't, the teacher has been trying to talk to the family about exploring the idea of an autism diagnosis for quite a few years. But the family was in denial, and it was quite a challenge. But the family went to a lunch and learn session with Umid, and after that, the next day, went to the teacher and shared information about her concerns about her son, and was kind of on the way to accepting the possibility of a diagnosis and getting more support. So that was really encouraging, and that's the kind of work that I think they're trying to do.